My Hero Academia, Season 3, Episode 21, titled, What's the Big Idea? Which is a very good question. And 3 weeks prior to the licensing exam, we find out exactly what the big idea is, with the Hero Public Safety Commission discussing exactly what this test is all about, referencing in the fact that so much was placed on the shoulders of one person, one singular solitary person, and the gap between the number one hero and the number two hero, Endeavor, was so massive that Endeavor barely kind of existed to a certain extent, at least in the eyes of the general public. And the whole idea behind the test this time around is to reinforce the theme of teamwork, understanding what roles you can fill in order to better help and support the hero community. It's not bad to have one specific person who shines on the battlefield, but, you know, having the greater support, bringing out the best people who are able to back up that kind of talent is essential as well. And having more people out there, having a legion of heroes who have great cooperation as well as power is essential in this day and age. And that's ultimately what the Hero Commission decided for the licensing exam. And that's what the ball test was for testing how quick they were on their feet, as well as the situation with the our fake civilians as well as gang orcas attack, just to show if they're able to organize, rally, and just work things out like proper first responders, basically. So it's actually a very clever way about going towards things, and I really love the planning behind this because it shows that this is not for shits and giggles. This is a highly thought out situation, and there's a greater method behind all of this. They're not just doing this arbitrarily, they're trying to rework things because their previous system ended up kind of falling apart, which, the writing was on the wall that that eventually would happen, but when it did, it really just, the impact was greater than anything anyone could have imagined. So ultimately, the Yukimura Mira describes the point system, whereas they're being graded and they start out with a total number of points. And depending on how they do in terms of the rescue operation, as well as the situation with Gang Orca, as well as how they interact with various people, is all being surveyed by various members of the Hero Public Safety Commission. So there's, people looking out for, if you make mistakes, if you make good calls. So your thing is you don't want to reduce in points. You're not trying to gain points, you're trying to keep your points. So that's why a lot of the, fake injured civilians go deduct this many points, deduct that many points. But even still, it's not that many points once they kind of figure out what they need to do. And anyone who drops below 50 points automatically fails, which that's Japanese ranking right there. A 50 over a 50 and above is a passing grade, whereas that would be a straight up fail. You got to get like a 70 in America and you pass. So that kind of shows how lenient yet not so lenient the grading here is. Ultimately, Yoshindo comes in to disrupt the activities of Gang Orca's men in order to allow time for the other students to evacuate the civilians. However, Gang Orca comes in and uses his sonic paralysis in order to, paralyze Yoshindo, bringing him down. However, Todoroki comes in with his ice in order to stand up to Gang Orca. The rest of the students who are with him come running in order to help evacuate everyone out, while Todoroki stalls them. we also have Inase, who also comes in using his wind abilities to blow away a lot of the mooks. And a lot of the people go, you know, a lot of the students as well as the observers, note that this is a good plan. Have a lot of the faster and more agile, yet less powerful people just kind of evacuate all the civilians, while these heavy hitters with really impactful quirks hold off both Gang Orca and his mooks. So, a lot of people praise their ingenuity. However, as Todoroki goes in to fire his flames, it's blown away by Inase's wind. And, their two powers just seem very incompatible because the heat causes his wind to just flow upwards and outwards, so they keep getting in each other's way. Inase just kind of berates Shoto, saying that, he's no better than his dad. When Inase first met Endeavor, he was very passionate and wanted Endeavor's autograph, but Endeavor brushed him aside, saying, "Don't get in my way." And he just had this cold, intense look in his eyes, these eyes looking into the far future or the distance with just ever burning hate. And this really kind of disrupted Inase's flow. And you find out a little more about that later down the line. And he also states that when he first met Todoroki, he knew he was Endeavor's son because he had that same far distant hatred in his eyes. Like he's not, looking in the present. He's consumed with getting stronger for the future to just overcome someone he just feels this burning hatred to. But this disrupts Shoto's train of thought, whereas he was just ready to just go in and do what he needed to do, and he was brushing off everything Inase said. Hearing that he was the same as his father just jostles him and just brings up these lingering feelings like, I'm not the same as my father. How dare you say this? And you can just tell that this is a sore subject for him because Shoto has developed, but he realizes that he still has that hatred in him to a certain degree. He did put it behind him to a certain extent, and he was even able to forget his father for a little bit, but it's still there, and that bothers Shoto because he's just like, that hatred made me no different from my father. However, Gang Orca is not about just letting these two kids just kind of have it out here. It's just like, what are you doing in front of a villain? Get your shit together, guys. How dare you make a mockery of this whole exam? And Shoto goes again to attack, but as Nanase goes in as well, and they just disrupt each other. And because of this, these flames go headed right to Yoshindo, and Izuku has to step in, saving Yoshindo, and it's just like, what the hell are you guys doing? Get it together. And this kind of jostles Inase, and he just finds himself thinking back. It's just like, ever since he was a kid, he's always had a love for people who were passionate. Anything that seemed passionate, even insects that just had a lot of energy. And this is what also drew him to heroes who fought passionately for the side of justice. They had this deep, burning passion to protect and save people. But when he met Endeavor, his passion felt wrong, corrupt even. Like, it wasn't right. It wasn't filled with nothing but hatred. At least with others, there was love or this need or, there was a very basic form of it. But these complex hatred that Endeavor had was just off-putting to him. And, Inase even, during the training for UA, when he had a race with all the students, including Todoroki, Todoroki was so much faster than he was initially. And, initially, Inase was intimidated by this, but he decided that he would, try to compete with Todoroki to, maybe feel like, just because he had this initial look doesn't mean he was, just the same as his dad. Maybe there was something different about him. So he ends up winning. It's just like, man, that was awesome. That was so intense. He tries to bring out some passion from Todoroki, but ultimately Todoroki just kind of blows him off. It's just like, I wasn't trying to compete with you, and he just brushes him away as if he were nothing. In his eyes, Todoroki did not see other people because he was so focused on becoming better than his dad. And that made him, to an extent, no better than Endeavor, with this consuming hatred for one person and this need, this drive to improve just to demean someone else. And that's a faulty form of passion. I'm playing Persona 5 right now, and it's just like, it's a distortion of your train of thought. You have this drive and you have this passion, but it's corrupted by this hatred or this need you feel. And, this is corrupting your very being. Luckily for Shoto, he had some sense knocked into him by Deku, who is just like, yo, you're not your father. You don't need to prove anything to your father. If anything, do things for you and no one else. And even Todoroki snaps out. It's just like, man, how could I not remember this person? They're so distinct, so loud, so boastful, and this power. How did I not remember him? Was I so consumed within these thoughts of my father that I drowned out everything and everyone else? Was I so indifferent to other people's feelings? Just the way my father was indifferent to the feelings of me, my siblings, and my mother. And these are just complex trains of thought for Shoto. I don't much care for Inase's reasoning in a lot of things, but at the same time, even Inase ultimately comes to the conclusion later on that it's just like, this isn't a great train of thought for me. I shouldn't have gone down this path because it made me no better than Endeavor in the end. And ultimately, Gang Orca, from a distance, so it's not quite as effective, but he manages to blast Inase out of the air, and Inase is shot with one of the cement bullets by Gang Orca's men. Meanwhile, Gang Orca also manages to get in and paralyze Shoto as well. And Gang Orca's men go chasing after the civilians. And, just as I said before, Inase realizes just like, man, I became the very thing I hated. I was so bitter and just lost in my feelings towards this person. I became kind of just like them, having this deep-rooted just hatred. Because Inase, he doesn't have great reasoning for why he feels this way. But also, I understand it, because it's just like, it shakes the way he thinks about things. It's just like, it feels off to him. Like, it feels like, heroes shouldn't be doing what they do for that kind of reasoning, for this hatred. It's just like, hey, to be a hero is a very selfless and activity. Is just like, you're showing your passion for wanting to help people. But Shoto earlier and Endeavor now is just like, there's something off about the way they were going about things that just felt so alien to Nase's train of thought. And even Todoroki's just like, man, I messed up because I was so caught up in things in the past that I never really noticed the world around me. And, this is the cautionary tale of these two characters. It's just like, don't let don't let hate rule your passion. Don't let spite for others just consume you. I mean, it's not bad to have that kind of as a starting point, but recognize other people around you. Don't become alien to them or ignore them or just dismiss them, because hell, stuff like that can come back to bite you. That can shape the perception of people around you and can cause no end of trouble for you in certain situations. However, Yoshindo is able to recover, mostly because Gang Orca's attack is all about like vibrations that cause paralysis. But Yoshindo, with his quirk, it kind of vibrates his body as well and causes a bit of shock to him. So he's able to recover because he's more used to that. And he disrupts Gang Orca's men, allowing Izuku to come in and take them down while they're caught off guard. Gang Orca goes to, send out another blast to Inase to make sure he's down because he's still able to whip up some wind. Then he wants to go help out his men. But Inase and Todoroki end up kind of working together in order to create this wall of wind and fire to imprison Gang Orca, which, Gang Orca acknowledges that yes, previously they were, fucking up big time, but he acknowledges, like, this is a good plan, surround me with this danger to hold me in one place, to keep me from, going about attacking the civilians. And Gang Orca's men is just like, oh no, Gang Orca's still kind of like an actual orca, so he's gonna dry out because of this. So they're distracted and want to go help him, and they try to fire at Todoroki, who, having previously wanted to learn how to use both his fire side and his ice side at the same time, he puts up this wall in order to defend himself. And he's just like, of all the places for me to kind of learn how to do this, because he was struggling with it up until now, but that shows, Todoroki had some growth. He had to, desperate times caused him to learn how to control his power a little bit better. And because of the fact that Gang Orca's men are so distracted by the situation that Orca's in, they end up getting beaten down by Izuku, as well as Tailman over here. He comes in for the save to come in and help out Izuku and really proves a bit of a difference. Meanwhile, the other students do their best in order to, kind of, save as many people, continue to save as many as they can. And meanwhile, the other students of Class 1A also come in to take down a lot of the mooks, with Froppy showing off her new camouflage ability as well. And we even have Mora from Shinketsu High School coming in, kind of a little bit displeased over the showing that, Inase had put out, because he's just like, I feel so ashamed that a member of my school was, put on such a shameful face. Gang Orca manages to break out of the fire prison. However, he's intercepted by Deku, but ultimately the provisional license exam ends with the rescue of the last two civilians by Kaminari, Kirishima, and Bakugo, and with the capture of all of Gang Orca's men. Ultimately, his subordinates ask him, it's just like, man, I'm sorry we could have gotten to you, but then again, you were put in these kind of restraints in order to suppress your full abilities. But Gang Orca tells it like it is, and it's just like, yo, even without these restraints, between the prison of fire and Izuku coming in with a surprise attack, I really don't know how long I might have lasted against all of that. Which goes to show that even though he was a little bit, restrained and preoccupied, there was a good showing by a lot of these students. And ultimately the results are put in with the organizer kind of telling them about the fact that, how the point system worked. Yukimura tells them it's just like, you were all about trying to keep your points, and, it was all about scoring how few mistakes you made in terms of, what you could do. If you had the potential to get better and learn a little bit more. So he ends up posting it on the board, and we end our episode with Izuku desperately searching for his name. This was a good episode. I know not a lot of people much care for the current state of affairs with what they're learning and how they're learning it, but this is My Hero Academia. It's about academics, learning, developing growth. Unlike a lot of other series that do have schooling, but it's more about the battles, it's just like, yes, I can understand you preferring the fights rather than actual school, everyday life, testing, and all that good stuff. But, this is essential to the growth and development of these characters. It'd be weird that they didn't do stuff like this. Actually have learning in a learning environment. Develop for the future positions that they're trying to get. This is very much like college. They're pursuing a goal specifically. So it's not bad that they go off and have other adventures or other encounters, but you gotta get back to the academia part. Heroics is fine, but this is a growth. So it's good to see, everything that our cast of characters has learned and how they'll develop and what they still lack. It's just a great way of showing that. But that's all I really have to say for this episode. Not the most action packed, but it still was fairly interesting. And tell me your thoughts in the comments below. Leave me a like if you liked what I had to say, or a dislike if you didn't, and subscribe for more My Hero Academia. Who will pass and who will fail?